Hi, here I am again, Andy XL, back with another NFXL podcast in the build up to the 2026 NFL draft. I'm doing a piece every day, and today's piece is going to look at why the Raiders should trade the first overall pick in this year's draft. Now, that is a question that has seemingly gone off the radar completely, with the world seemingly accepting that the Raiders will spend the first overall pick on Indiana quarterback Fernando Mendoza. But my question is, would that be the best use of the first overall pick of the Raiders? And here are 5 reasons why that may not be the best course of action. Number one, they are not going to make the postseason in 2026. They have the first overall pick for a reason, that being they were a bad team and have too much work to do to turn that around in one season. People may say, but the Patriots did. The difference here is that the Raiders are in a division where all 3 teams they are competing with may all improve next season, whereas the Jets and Dolphins were likely to struggle last season, and even the Bills looked like they had plateaued. So there was a better opportunity for the Patriots to find a way to the top of their division, far better than the Raiders have got in their division. So in a year where even getting out of last place in that division would be a considerable achievement, my question is, would it not be better to trade the first overall pick away for draft capital that allows you to get all your ducks in a row for next season, and not this season, but next season and beyond? So, argument number 2, history tells us the answer to the previous question is yes. The first overall pick has been traded away 3 times this century. Firstly, by the then San Diego Chargers in 2001, when they allowed the Falcons to move up to take Michael Vick. Having traded back to pick 5, the Chargers took some guy named LaDainian Tomlinson. I think I've heard of him. The Chargers went from being a 1-15 team in 2000 to getting 5 wins the following season and 8 the season after. So it clearly made them a much better team. In 2016, the Tennessee Titans traded the first overall pick to the Rams, who took, guess what, a quarterback in Jared Goff. Among the haul they got as a result was a certain Derrick Henry. I think we've heard of him. Following that trade, the Titans went from 3 wins to being a 9-win team for the following 4 seasons, making the postseason twice. And finally, in 2023, the Bears traded the first pick to the Panthers, who, guess what, used it on a quarterback, Bryce Young. In return, the Bears got DJ Moore as part of the deal, a first round pick in 2024, which turned out to be the first overall pick again that they used to get Caleb Williams, while still getting Rome Odunze with their own first round pick. They also got a second round pick in 2025 as part of the trade, which they used to get Luther Burden. So a win-win-win-win-win all round for the Bears there. After that trade, they went from being a 3-win team to a 7-win team the following season, and then last season shocking us all by making the postseason as divisional champions with 11 wins. So every team that has traded the first pick away this century has become a much better team as a result. And you could argue that, Carolina made the postseason last season with Bryce Young, but has Bryce Young really panned out for him? Did Jared Goff pan out for the Rams while they traded him away and got Matt Stafford? So you could make an argument. And Michael Vick, yeah, that's a whole different story, isn't it? So my argument is that they probably got at least as much out of trading the pick away, if not more, than they would have done by using it. So argument 3, they have Kirk Cousins and have made some good moves in recent drafts. Having acquired Cousins basically on a cheap deal from the Falcons, the Raiders have a veteran quarterback placeholder, whilst they could use the picks they acquire from trading the first overall pick away to further strengthen their overall roster. And that would be on the back of the last 2 years where they've added Brock Bowers, then Ashton Gionte, who both look set to be amongst the best tight ends and running backs in the league for years to come. They also have added guard Jackson Powers Johnson, tackle DJ Glaze, cornerback Darian Porter, plus Tyree Wilson and Trey Tucker in recent drafts. That's 7 starters added in the last 3 drafts. So add another 2 or 3 for the next 2 drafts as a result of trading the first overall pick away and get your starting quarterback next year, along with the strong free agent acquisitions they have made this offseason. And the roster will be there to challenge from 2027 onwards, which is when you add the quarterback as the cherry on the cake. I don't think you take the quarterback before you've pretty much got the cake in place. Then you add that as the dressing because that's the final piece you need. Argument 4, trade back and still get a potential star this year. So the teams who might look to trade up to take a quarterback might be Arizona, Cleveland, New York Jets, Pittsburgh. If it were Arizona, Cleveland, or the New York Jets, you would get their pick at early in the draft. I'm just double checking where the what order that is. Yeah, Jets at 2, Arizona at 3, Cleveland at 6. So if any of them moved up, you're basically getting 2, 3, or 6, where you'd have the opportunity to take the likes of Arvell Reese, David Bailey, Reuben Bain, Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles. I've left out Jeremiah Love because I've already got Jonte. So all of those look like potential studs at their positions and fits what the Raiders have done in taking Bowser's Jonte as the best player available, regardless of your positional need. For instance, when they took Bowers, they already had Michael Mayer. So, they didn't say, oh, we've got our quarterback. They went and got something better. Right. Inside linebacker, edge, and safety are not primary needs for the Raiders in this draft, but any of the 5 named are almost certain to make your team better and maybe much, much better. I think they're all potentially great players. If it were Pittsburgh, they're trading up from pick 21. The Steelers would have to pay a king's ransom to do so, which may include players and picks. The Raiders may even be able to use the 21st pick the Steelers would give them to take a wide receiver they certainly need. So, this all makes sense to me. Argument 5, you will get valuable picks for next year's draft too. If the trade back was to Arizona or Cleveland or the Jets, the Raiders would get their first round pick next year. Now, Arizona are going to do well to get off the bottom of the NFC West this season and seem unlikely to make the postseason as a result. So their first round pick could well be in the first 10 overall in 2027. Cleveland are in an even worse situation, and I would strongly fancy them to be amongst the worst teams in the league again in 2026. So the 2027 pick you get from them would likely be a top 5 pick. And the Jets, I think they may actually get off the bottom of their division. They may overtake the Dolphins, who are basically um, started a complete overhaul and rebuild. So the Jets might get off the bottom of the division, but to get to 7 or 8 wins still looks a big deal for them. So you're certainly going to get, at worst, the first half of round 1, and possibly another team with a top 10 pick you'd get for next year by trading with them. Um, Given that the Raiders find themselves in a similar position in terms of getting off the bottom of their division, their own pick may well be a top 10 pick in next year's draft too. So the likelihood is that you would own 2 top 10 picks in a talent-laden 2027 draft, where you might be able to take a quarterback and another quality player, or alternatively, parlay the 2 early picks together to trade up to the 1 spot to take the cream of a healthy quarterback crop in that draft. Win, or what? So, in conclusion, Ames will be better this year than last year, with veteran Cousins at the helm, whilst loading up on picks this year and next to allow you to be ready to not only to challenge for divisional titles, but more than that from 2027 onwards. Now, I read yesterday that the Raiders have had calls, inquiries, or certainly had conversations with other teams about trading the first round pick, and their stance is, well, we've let the other teams know what they need to give us. Well, now it comes down to how much do those teams think Fernando Mendoza is worth, and that might be the issue here. Do any of those teams really think Mendoza's the finished article that is going to take them to Super Bowls and etc.? Well, if they do, they may well be interested in paying that price. If not, the Raiders may have to drop their price. But I just get the feeling, um, from reading between the lines of what was said yesterday, that the Raiders might actually be quite happy to trade the first pick away if they get a decent offer. So don't take it as a fait accompli that they're going to take the first overall pick and use it on Fernando Mendoza. As the draft gets closer and closer, we may well see some dramatic trade be announced. But the likelihood still is that they probably will end up using the pick and take Mendoza, because my feeling is that none of the other teams are going to pay the price that the Raiders want them to pay. But I would suggest the best move for the Raiders is to trade the first pick away rather than take it and use it on Fernando Mendoza. So no knock on Mendoza particularly. I think he could be a very good quarterback, but he's still an unknown, as all quarterbacks that come in. You just don't know what's going to happen with him. You get some first rounders that are don't turn out to be any good or take years to come to their best play. You know, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, they need a second time around the loop. Or sometimes it can be the seventh rounders, Brock Purdy, late, you know, people who drop down in drafts, Tom Brady, you know, dare I now mention his name in relation to the Raiders. But that's my overall view on that situation. I personally, if I was the Raiders, would be keen to trade that first overall pick. And let's see if they do. So tomorrow I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a piece where I'm going to look at 15 candidates that have risen in draft stock since the combine. I've gone back and looked at my post combine rankings and my rankings now, and I'm going to detail 15 players that have risen, particularly when they're within their own position, but overall as well. So stay tuned for that one tomorrow. See you soon.